All right, let's dive into this vocabulary building thing.
Yeah,
Everyone wants to boost their vocabulary, right?
for
I mean,
sure.
who doesn't want to sound smarter?
Right.
But, these two sources you sent us, boost your English vocabulary and vocabulary building, a comprehensive study guide.
Mm-hmm.
They actually suggest it's way more than just sounding smart.
It really is.
It's like it can legit help you think better.
Exactly.
Like actually improve your thinking.
Well, think about it this way. Like, when you have a richer vocabulary, you can grasp, like, these more complex ideas.
Okay, yeah.
Express yourself way more clearly.
It's like, when you're trying to explain something and you just can't find the right word.
Exactly.
And you're like, ugh, it's on the tip of my tongue.
It's so frustrating.
Yeah, and then you just sound kind of dumb.
Totally.
But one of the sources even mentioned that a strong vocabulary can actually open up new opportunities.
Oh, absolutely.
Like in your career,
Makes a huge difference.
if you can articulate your ideas persuasively.
For sure. Like, even think about something like a job interview.
Oh, yeah,
Or, you're presenting a project.
right.
The way you use language can really make you stand out.
Totally. It's like having the right tools for the job.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're all about boosting our vocabulary, but where do we even start?
Right.
Both of these sources are saying that reading is like the foundation.
That's the key.
Okay, but, I mean, we all know we should read more, right?
Yeah.
So is there something more to it?
Well, it's not just about, like, seeing new words.
Okay,
It's about how you encounter them.
I see.
When you meet a word in context, like when you're reading,
Yeah,
you see how it's actually used,
right.
It's nuances, it's shades of meaning.
That makes so much more sense than just like memorizing a definition from a dictionary.
Exactly. Dictionaries are great,
Yeah.
but they only give you like this flat, one-dimensional view of a word.
It's true.
Whereas reading is like...
It's like seeing it come to life. Like, I remember this one time I was reading this historical fiction novel,
Okay.
and I came across this word mellifluous,
Nice.
and I had no idea what it meant.
Yeah, it's not a common one.
So I looked it up, and it means like sweet or musical sounding.
Right.
But seeing it used in the context of this, like, beautiful description of a character's voice,
Mm-hmm.
it just made it stick in my mind.
That's the power of context.
Yeah, it wasn't just a definition anymore. It's like, oh, I get it now.
Exactly.
I can feel the sweetness, the musicality.
And you'll probably remember that word now.
Oh, yeah. I think it's there for you.
See? That's how it works.
One of the sources even suggests reading beyond just books and articles.
Oh, yeah. It's all about variety.
Like they mentioned song lyrics, even well-written video game dialogue.
Absolutely.
Like finding those pockets of language.
Everywhere.
Yeah.
And honestly, it doesn't have to be like a chore either.
No.
Choose stuff you actually enjoy reading.
Right.
Whether it's like, sci-fi novels, food blogs, or even those crazy Reddit threads that suck you in for hours.
Oh, I know those threads.
We all do.
Yeah, but how do we make sure these words actually stick? Like beyond just reading them.
That's where a vocabulary journal comes in.
Okay, one of the sources mentioned those.
It's like, imagine a museum,
Okay.
but for words.
A word museum?
Yes.
I like that.
Your own personal collection of these awesome words you discovered.
And you put them in the museum?
Yeah, but it's more than just writing down the definition.
Okay.
You want to really engage with the word,
Nicely.
Define it in your own terms.
Okay.
Come up with example sentences.
Using the word.
Yeah, your own examples. So it really sticks.
I like that.
You can even dive into the etymology of the word.
Oh, wow. Like where it comes from.
Exactly. Its history, its origins.
That sounds pretty nerdy.
It can be, but it's fun.
Okay.
And if you're a visual person, you can even make little sketches or doodles.
To help you remember.
Yeah, whatever works for you.
So it's like a personalized word scrapbook.
Exactly. And it can be anything.
Like a physical notebook, digital notes, flashcards.
It's all about finding what works best for you.
It's like making it your own.
Yeah, exactly.
But the key is actually using it, right?
Exactly. And reviewing it regularly.
Regular.
Because let's face it, our brains are like sieves sometimes.
Yeah.
We forget stuff if we don't use it.
It's true. So how do we stop our brains from forgetting all these amazing new words?
Well, one of the sources talks about this technique called spaced repetition.
Okay.
Have you ever heard of that?
I think so. Sounds familiar.
It's basically this idea that we learn things best when we space out our review sessions.
Okay.
Like instead of cramming everything in at once.
Right, which never works.
No, not really.
You just end up forgetting everything the next day.
Exactly, but with spaced repetition,
Yeah.
you review the information at increasingly longer intervals.
So you're like reminding your brain that it's important.
Exactly. It's like you're tricking your brain into thinking, hey, I need to remember this.
I like that.
Because it keeps popping up.
Yeah, it makes sense. It's like if you keep seeing something over and over again, you're more likely to remember it.
Right, like that song that gets stuck in your head.
Oh, totally.
You only heard it once, but now you can't stop singing it.
Exactly. But how do you actually put this spaced repetition thing into practice?
Well, the good news is there are actually apps for that.
Really?
Yeah, like Anki and Quizlet.
Oh, yeah, I've heard of those.
They basically do all the scheduling for you.
So you don't have to, like, figure out all the intervals and stuff?
Nope, you just input your vocabulary words and the app tells you when to review them.
That's so cool. It's like having a personal vocabulary coach.
Exactly.
Okay, but even with all these techniques, is just knowing definitions enough to really master vocabulary?
That's a good question.
Because one of the sources kind of hinted at the idea that words have like deeper layers of meaning.
Yeah, absolutely. There's this whole others level to language
Oh,
where
so,
you go beyond just the dictionary definition.
so like, what do you mean by that?
Well, think about the word home, for example,
Okay.
and then think about the word house.
Okay, so like technically they both mean the same thing, right?
They both refer to a place where you live,
Yeah.
but they have very different feelings attached to them.
Yeah, home feels so much warmer and more personal.
Exactly.
House just sounds kind of cold and impersonal.
And that's what we call connotation.
Connotation.
It's the emotional baggage that a word carries.
Oh, that's interesting. So it's like each word has its own personality.
Kind of, yeah.
And knowing those nuances can really change how you use language.
Absolutely.
It's like you can choose words that evoke specific emotions.
Exactly. And that's what makes language so powerful.
And then there are those tricky things called idioms.
Oh, yeah. Idioms can be a real headache.
They're like those phrases that don't actually mean what the words say.
Exactly. Like kick the bucket. It doesn't actually mean kicking a bucket.
No, it means to die.
Yeah. And those can be really hard to learn.
Especially for people who are learning English as a second language.
Absolutely. They're like little cultural puzzles.
Yeah, it's like you have to crack the code.
And sometimes the codes are different in different cultures.
Oh, that's true.
Like one of the sources mentioned that even within English-speaking countries,
Yeah.
certain idioms might only be used in a specific region.
Or even like a specific generation.
Exactly. So it's a whole other layer of complexity.
So we've got reading, we've got our vocabulary journal, we've got spaced repetition, and we're paying attention to the deeper layers of meaning.
Mm-hmm.
But both sources also talk about this thing called immersion.
Right. Immersion is key.
So what is that exactly?
It's basically surrounding yourself with the language as much as possible.
Okay.
Making it a part of your everyday life.
So like watching movies and TV shows in English,
Yes, definitely.
listening to music in English,
Absolutely.
reading English books, obviously.
Of course.
Maybe even like changing your phone settings to English
Yeah, if you're feeling brave.
or talking to native English speakers.
Especially that.
Yeah, because that's how you actually use the language in real life.
Exactly. And it's also how you pick up on all those nuances and idioms we were talking about.
Okay, so immersion is all about like actively engaging with the language.
Yeah, it's about making it a part of your world.
One of the sources even suggested trying to think in English.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one.
Have you ever tried that?
I have. It's definitely challenging.
Yeah, I bet.
But it can be really effective.
Because you're not translating everything in your head.
Right, you're actually forming thoughts in English.
Like you're training your brain to think in a new language.
Exactly. It's like a mental workout.
But let's be real.
Yeah.
Sometimes learning vocabulary can feel like a chore.
I know what you mean.
Like it's not always fun and games.
Right, but it doesn't have to be that way.
So how do we make it more fun?
Well, one of the keys is to connect it to your passions.
Okay, I like that.
Like, what are you really interested in?
Yeah.
Find ways to incorporate English into those areas of your life.
So if you love cooking, for example,
Yeah?
watch cooking shows in English.
Read food blogs in English.
Maybe even try writing your own recipes in English.
Exactly. You're learning vocabulary without even realizing it.
Because you're doing something you enjoy.
Precisely.
That's so cool. So it's like finding those little pockets of English that fit into your life.
And making them a part of your routine.
So it's less about like sitting down with a textbook
Yeah.
and more about making English a natural part of how you experience the world.
Exactly.
Like we're shifting our mindset about how we even think about vocabulary.
Yeah, totally.
Instead of it being this like separate thing you have to study,
Mhm.
it's like integrating it into your life.
Exactly. Making it a natural part of who you are.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, let's do a quick recap.
Okay.
First off,
It's the
reading,
foundation.
right, but it doesn't have to be a chore.
No, not at all.
It's all about finding things you actually enjoy reading.
Whatever sparks your interest.
Exactly, whether it's, novels, magazines, blogs, whatever.
Even those crazy Reddit threads.
Oh, definitely those Reddit threads.
They can be surprisingly educational.
Sometimes.
Sometimes, yeah.
Okay, and then we talked about that vocabulary journal.
Your personal word museum.
I love that analogy.
It's a great way to make those words your own.
And it's not just about the definitions, right?
No, it's about engaging with the words on a deeper level.
Creating your own example.
Exploring their history.
Even adding some visuals if that's your thing.
Exactly. Make it fun. Make it personal.
And then, of course, there's spaced repetition.
The secret weapon against forgetting.
It's like training your brain to hold on to those those words.
And the best part is
Yeah.
there are apps that do all the work for you.
Those apps are lifesavers.
They really are.
Okay, and we can't forget about those deeper layers of meaning.
Connotation, idioms, all that good stuff.
Like, once you start paying attention to those nuances, it's like a whole new world of language opens up.
Exactly. You start to appreciate the complexity and the beauty of it.
And finally, there's immersion.
Surround yourself with English.
Make it a part of your everyday life.
Movies, music, conversations.
Even just thinking in English.
It all adds up.
It's like you're creating an environment where English can flourish.
Exactly.
This has been such an eye-opening deep dive for me. What about you?
Oh, absolutely. I always learn something new when we do these.
What's resonating with you most from what we've talked about?
I think the idea of connecting vocabulary learning with your passions is so powerful.
It's like you're not just learning words for the sake of learning words.
Right. You're using them to explore the things you love.
And for everyone listening, we want to hear from you.
Yes.
What's one strategy you're going to try this week?
Pick one and give it a go.
Maybe it's dusting off that vocabulary journal or trying out a new spaced repetition app.
Or even just challenging yourself to watch one movie in English this week.
Whatever it is, take that first step.
You won't regret it.
And remember, building your vocabulary is a journey, not a destination.
It's an ongoing process.
So keep exploring, keep learning, and keep having fun with language.
Exactly.
Until next time, happy learning, everyone.